Hello and welcome to Just a Damn Nerd. It is that time again as we take two of the greatest games and pit them against each other to see who is the best. And today we have a real treat for you guys. We have two of the greatest franchises in the history of gaming. Two games that need no introduction. Two franchises that have innovated and built nearly everything the FPS genre is based off of. And now we meet our first competitor. This franchise is responsible for bringing multiplayer to consoles. It's responsible for making FPS work on consoles. Games like Battlefield and Call of Duty wouldn't even be what they are on console without this franchise. It added to storytelling in gaming. It took gaming to a new level. The third game of this franchise destroyed Hollywood for months. Ladies and gentlemen, representing this historic franchise today is Halo Infinite. And Halo Infinite's opponent practically invented the first-person shooter. This was the first first-person shooter to ever achieve mainstream success. It has been a household name for longer than I've been alive. And just recently, a couple years ago, it rebooted itself and returned to its rightful place on top of the FPS genre. It is the OG, the original, the great, the amazing, the almighty Doom Eternal. And now, these two games will fight for the honor of the legendary franchises. Winner take all. Who is the best? Here we go.
Doing this.
Halo Infinite has truly breathtaking graphics. Obviously, a reaction to the very poor reaction to the game's original E3 showing. The game looks absolutely incredible. Terrific texture detail and lighting. Explosions everywhere. The game also has true Dolby Atmos, which you can feel when you're playing it. This absolutely adds to the overall presentation of Halo Infinite. The guns look great, the Chief looks great, the cutscenes look absolutely incredible, the lighting is truly next gen, and the game is just absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, however, it does let down massively on the performance side, as even on a super beefy PC, it'll have a tough time keeping this game at 60 unless you drop the resolution below 4K. But overall, Halo Infinite is a gorgeous title. And now, it's Doom's turn. It's incredible how Doom Eternal's visuals managed to hold up even 2 years later. This game is an absolute visual showcase. From its insanely incredible art design to its ridiculous ability to keep its massive 120 frame rate at almost all times. Doom Eternal is a technical and visual marvel that still holds up even today against games that came out 2 months ago. Eternal is one of the best looking games I've ever played on my PC. It is stunningly gorgeous. This game even recently added ray tracing and still manages to keep its 120 FPS. It also has insane texture detail, great lighting, some of the best gore in any game that's ever come out. Doom Eternal is an example of the very best of computer graphics. Not only does it look absolutely incredible, not only does it run as smooth as it does, not only is its art design absolutely stunning, but it does all of it with almost no visual glitches or massive issues. There's nothing negative to say about Doom Eternal's visuals. This is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. When comparing Halo Infinite and Doom Eternal's graphics, it's actually extremely difficult. As you can see by looking at them, the two games are nearly identical in their graphic quality. So you really have to start getting super nitpicky when you're trying to determine which one of these games actually has better graphics. And when you start nitpicking, you cannot help but pick out the problems with Halo Infinite's visuals, like the lack of shadows at a distance in the open world, the fact detail drops off at long range, or the incredibly terrible frame rate even on powerful systems. While Halo Infinite still looks incredibly great, when you start nitpicking, it's easy to find a bunch of issues with Infinite that do not appear with Eternal. So, the winner of this round is Doom. Well, both those games look incredible, but Doom was just a little bit better. And guys, we award points based on how much better you are. That's why it is 6-4. Next up in this battle of epic titles, one of the most important categories to absolutely every single game, it is story.
I hope you're ready. Please don't die. Please. Don't die.
My name is Atriox, and I am the last face you will ever see.
Halo Infinite story is far better than 343's previous efforts. I believe it has a lot to do with Joseph Statham coming back to help finish this game. Halo Infinite story picks up after the Banished have already managed to annihilate the human army, the fleet, destroy the Infinity, and leave the Master Chief floating in space. Halo Infinite's best strength is clear almost immediately, and that is its pilot character. Halo Infinite's pilot character keeps the game a little bit more grounded than previous Halo games. He's weak and vulnerable, which makes the game more grounded because the Chief is such a superhero that sometimes it can be hard to be grounded back to the regular humans on Earth, the people you're actually supposed to be fighting for. The game also introduces us to the weapon, a new AI that serves pretty much the same role Cortana did in the previous games, and the Master Chief rushes against time to try to stop the Banished from firing the Halo ring. Again, you could argue that Halo Infinite story is a little formulaic for a Halo game. Stop the bad guys from firing the ring. And there was some massive disappointment from me and I think a lot of other people about the fact that, spoiler alert, Atriox is not the main villain in this game. If you played Halo Wars 2 and you heard the Banished were coming to Halo Infinite, you were super excited about Atriox versus the Master Chief. Atriox single-handedly annihilates 4 Spartans in the opening cutscene to Halo Wars 2. So, the fact he isn't the main villain in this game, instead is promised to be the main villain in the next game, that's a big disappointment and feels kind of like a little bit of bait and switch. However, Halo Infinite story definitely reaches heights that Halo 4 and 5 could have only hoped to reach. Here's hoping that 343 Industry builds on what they have here, because this is a great base. Don't screw it up again, guys. And now, let's figure out the Doom God's life story.
Against all the evil that hell can conjure, all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will send unto them only you. Rip and tear until it is done.
Doom Eternal takes huge steps forward for the franchise in storytelling. The story of Doom Eternal revolves around the Doom Slayer's origin. As you play through the game, you learn more and more about who the Doom Slayer is and why he does what he does. Essentially, the demons have launched a full-scale invasion of Earth. The Doom Slayer is committed to stopping them. There seems to be quite a few questions in this game about whether or not he's a god or avenging angel, but as you play through the game, you learn that he's a mortal who was given all kinds of powers of hell so he could fight the demons, and he's fueled by his intense, unwielding hatred. The game mostly focuses on its direct action, and the story is primarily an excuse just to rip demons apart, but it is still nice to see that Doom Eternal took the time to add in an interesting and well fleshed out story. The game also has some excellent boss encounters, which are propped up by the fact the story builds up almost every one of these bosses before you fight them. And since the game is so difficult, the bosses that are built up for a long amount of time, they're not just die with 2 or 3 hits. It all seems to be linked together, and the game does a fantastic job of blending story and gameplay. This is actually maybe the easiest category between these two games. While it is admirable that Doom Eternal attempted to add far more story to the game than previous Doom games, it's clear that Doom is not a story-focused game. Instead, it's more focused on its high-intensity combat, while on the flip side, Halo Infinite is extremely story-focused. As a matter of fact, I think the campaign is the best part of Halo Infinite. The story in Halo Infinite is well written, well animated, the cutscenes are fantastic, the facial work and animation adds to it, and the game does an excellent job of retconning the majority of the damage done with Halo 4 and 5's very mediocre stories. Infinite is a good return to form for the Halo franchise and its storytelling, and I believe that it stands head and shoulders above Doom Eternal because Doom Eternal really wasn't a story-focused game. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing Doom Eternal. Its story is actually fun, and I enjoy playing the game, and I like its story, but there is no comparison. Infinite is a much better, much more driven, story-focused game. So the winner of this one in a small landslide is Halo. Well, story's always important, and Doom sort of low-keyed it a little bit here. Next up is a very important thing to all first-person shooters. It is that old killing your friends. It is multiplayer. When you get around all of Halo Infinite's multiplayer issues, like the problem with Big Team Battle, the poor battle pass, the lack of co-op, and a list that goes on so long I could do its own video, what you find is Halo Infinite is actually a good return to form for the franchise and its multiplayer. The multiplayer is fun and addictive. Vehicles are strong but not too strong. Weapons are well balanced. The maps are pretty fun to play, and it has a very good big team mode that stands out from the rest of the game with unique combat, more open arenas, more vehicles, more weapons, and more variety. The big team mode is definitely the best part of Halo Infinite's multiplayer. It also has an interesting rank mode where it takes away radar and makes everyone spawn with BRs. The great decision was to have these two modes being these almost completely separate styles of game to give people the option of playing them. And when Halo Infinite's working the way it's supposed to, it's a ton of fun. Now we find out if Doom's multiplayer even has a chance. Here comes Doom! Doom Eternal tried to get creative with this multiplayer. Rather than going straight up toe-to-toe with games like Halo or Call of Duty or Battlefield, Doom Eternal tried to have an interesting multiplayer suite. First, you have its excellent Horde mode, which is propped up by Doom Eternal's tremendous gameplay and combat. The Horde mode is a ton of fun. However, the primary mode in Doom Eternal is its battle mode. Now, its battle mode is a odd FPS take on a MOBA style combat, where you control either one of two demons or the Doom Slayer. The demon's goal is to kill the Slayer, and the demons can respawn after dying, after a short 20 second delay, which may seem kind of unfair, but the Slayer is ridiculously overpowered. The demons can also spawn demons to attack the Slayer, which can distract the Slayer long enough for you to recover your health or wait for your teammates to spawn. This mode kind of fell a little short, but it was a very good idea. And it still has a player base. I had no problem finding games today to actually play it. Doom Eternal's multiplayer may be its weakest element, but I have to give an A for creativity here. Well, this round really feels like a no-brainer, but I believe in game genres, certain categories must be included, like story and RPGs, and unfortunately for Doom, multiplayer and FPSs. There isn't really much of a comparison here. Halo Infinite's multiplayer is one of the best out right now when it actually works right. The only thing that really keeps this category from being an absolute 10-0 crushing is the fact that Halo Infinite is loaded with problems like a mediocre battle pass that has made people stop playing it. But if you really sit down and compare these two games' multiplayers, there isn't a comparison. Halo Infinite is vastly superior in its multiplayer design, its game types, gameplay, and overall in just about every single way. The only thing that Doom can bring to the table is a pretty interesting horde mode. But either way, this one was never a competition from the start. The winner of this round is Halo. Well, Doom's in a little bit of trouble, guys. It really needs to start to make a comeback in this next category. Ladies and gentlemen, this category is important to every modern game. Gamers don't accept games anymore without this. This is exploration. Halo Infinite makes a massive change in the way Halo does its exploration. Halo Infinite is a true open world game. Fortunately, however, 343 Industries managed to avoid making the game 7,000 square miles and 7 million hours of boring repetitive gameplay. For the most part, everything you do in Halo Infinite feels somewhat meaningful and fun to attack bases time and time again. Although I would have liked to see the Marines take over the bases you take from the Banished. That would be a little cooler. But it's still a lot of fun to attack bases. It's fun to explore this ring. I had a lot of fun exploring Zeta Halo. It's fun to get vehicles like Scorpion tanks and Warthogs, is load up with Marines with sniper rifles and rocket launchers, and just go and roll over the Banished like they're nothing. The game also has interesting open world boss encounters, but it unfortunately does make the mistake of marking them on your map. Overall, however, Halo Infinite's open world exploration is a ton of fun. It is a bit held back by being an open world title, however, as sometimes it does feel incredibly boring. Although I will say that 343 made a great decision, because every time you start doing a main mission, the game locks you into a purely linear straight path. The game tries to have the best of both worlds and does a pretty good job. Halo Infinite is a ton of fun to explore. Well, guys, Doom desperately needs to make up points. Let's find out if it can right now. Doom Eternal does a truly extraordinary job with this exploration. You see, Doom Eternal has these kind of open-ended but still linear levels, giving Doom Eternal the advantage of having linear levels where it can tell its story and have hand-placed enemy encounters and enemies, but also having the advantage of the feeling of exploration. These huge open-ended levels have all kinds of stuff you can find in them, from secret areas that give you extra lives, to secret areas that give you collectibles, to upgrades for your character, upgrades for your weapons, new abilities, hidden combat challenge areas. And in doing so, Doom Eternal doesn't have the repetitive, soulless tasks that a majority of open-world games do, because open-world games have to be so large, the developers are forced to computer-generate a lot of it, and computer-generated content is boring after a very short amount of time. Instead, Eternal is the best of both worlds, exploration and hand-placing. The exploration in Eternal definitely is a new standard for the FPS genre. important to every game genre is exploration. Exploration is critical to your enjoyment of a game, especially in modern day when almost every game is open world. And both of these games have very good exploration in it. Once again, this is a round where we really do have to start nitpicking to actually determine the difference between the two. And when you start nitpicking, I believe Doom Eternal has far more rewarding exploration. Halo Infinite occasionally falls into the trap of open world games where I'm repeating saving Marines for the 12th time, or repeating destroying a boss for the 12th time, while Eternal always feels meaningful. Every time I found a secret area in Doom Eternal, I always felt like I found something I wanted to. So much that I would teleport back to the beginning of levels after finishing them and spend another 20 or 30 minutes just trying to find everything. This is meaningful exploration at its best, and this is one category where Doom actually has a pretty good advantage. And the winner of the exploration round is Doom. And this is it. As it so often does in these competitions, it comes down to the final round. The final round is always what I think is the most important part of whatever game genre we're looking at. This is critical to every single FPS, period. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you combat. Here we are. The most important part of any FPS is combat. And fortunately, Halo Infinite's combat is one of the areas where it's most close to returning to form. The combat in Infinite feels much more physics-based in Halo 4 and 5. A lot less Call of Duty or Battlefield than Halo 4 and 5 as well. Instead, Halo Infinite's combat feels closer to Reach and feels far more Halo than anything else, which is what you should be saying for a Halo game, no doubt. But let's be fair, Halo 4 and 5 felt more like Battlefield or Call of Duty and less like Halo. Halo Infinite's combat is its strongest suit, as it is absolutely fun. Whether you're playing the multiplayer and dealing with sweaties, or you're playing the single player and dealing with the banished. The single player is where Halo Infinite truly stands out. The enemies in the single player are intelligent, violent, vicious. They'll surround you, flank you, and counter you. It can be very difficult at times. The only downside with Infinite's combat is its terrible boss encounters. They feel like pounding your head against the wall as you're often fighting an enemy with far too much health and a superpowered weapon that kills you with 1 or 2 hits. I don't know why this was a thing, but it feels like they took it straight out of Destiny. Overall, Halo Infinite's combat feels like a return to form for the franchise. I would like to see some more blood in the future and maybe a return to the M rating of the past. But either way, Halo Infinite definitely has the most outstanding combat of any game since Bungie left the franchise. Now this is critical. Now remember guys, we associate points based on how good you are. So Doom can win this round and still lose this competition. It's trailing by 4 points. Let's see if Doom can find a way to gain those 4 points back. Here comes Doom. Now we've reached the most important thing for any FPS. And fortunately, Doom Eternal is an absolute masterclass in how to do FPS combat. From the incredible levels of gore to the high intensity, pulse-pounding action, to the nearly perfect level of difficulty that doesn't quite break your soul, but does make you want to throw your controller, to the ridiculously good graphics. The combat in Eternal is just magic. There was very few times that a game has this much fun in combat. I can think of very little bad to say about Eternal's combat. Every weapon feels glorious and crunchy. Even the lower level weapons can take out bigger demons with enough hits. And the weapon suite is huge, with more than 10 weapons. Different kinds of weapons, superpowered weapons, swords, chainsaws, the BFG, the Unmaker, and tons of bosses and enemies to use them on. Really, the only negative with the entirety of Doom Eternal's combat is that goddamn Marauder. But other than that, Doom Eternal is an absolute masterclass. You could teach a class on FPS combat and use Doom Eternal to do it with. Everything you do in an FPS to interact with the environment is combat, and Doom Eternal is undoubtedly superior in its combat. The problem for Eternal is it needs to be quite a good bit superior in its combat to actually beat Halo, because it's trailing here. But when you start thinking about Eternal versus Halo, you get two games with some of the best combat in the FPS genre. However, I do feel that Doom Eternal pulls itself away for a litany of reasons, such as its extreme gore, its incredibly high pace, its nearly perfect challenge. Halo Infinite is a little bit too easy on heroic and frustrating against the bosses on legendary, but fairly easy against regular enemies, while Eternal, with the exception of the goddamn Marauder, is actually nearly perfect in its difficulty. The addition of 20 different things you can do in every fight, from swords, grenades, freezing grenades, flamethrowers, chainsaws, tons of different weapons, makes it so every combat encounter feels unique and different. It's like a puzzle with infinite solutions. No matter how often you play through Doom Eternal, you can approach the combat in a different way every time. Every weapon is viable from the start to finish, while Halo struggles from a problem the Halo franchise has had for years, where only about 3 or 4 of the weapons are actually viable. For example, you would never keep an AR in lieu of a battle rifle. The Commando's a steaming pile of horseshit, the pistol's not very accurate, and the power weapons absolutely break the game at times. So, due to the fact Doom has extreme balance, it makes it very hard for Halo to stay competitive in this area. So the question is, did Doom earn enough points to win the competition, or has Halo dethroned the OG? And your winner of Halo Infinite versus Doom Eternal is Doom! Well, that was a close one. Doom eking out a narrow 1-point victory. Well, guys, I appreciate you watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I haven't decided what 2 games will go up against each other next, so let me know if you have any suggestions. And always remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time on Just a Damn Nerd. This is a Damn Nerd signing off.